It's here finally. It feels like in some ways I got here like 2 days ago, and in some ways I got here like 5 years ago. But we're here. We're at the start of fall camp. It's an exciting time, obviously. Everyone's really excited to kind of take all the work that we've put in this summer, all the things that we believe we've improved on, and now go out on the grass and see if they're a reality. And so we're going into fall camp in a good place. We're very healthy. We don't have a lot of kids banged up. There's not a lot of lingering injuries. And so we're excited about where we are. We'll just kind of announce a couple guys. So Eni White is still banged up. He's still recovering from his knee surgery, so he won't be ready to go right away, but we expect to have him by the opener. Jabri Barber is still recovering from his foot injury from spring. But we do anticipate him. He's on a crash course getting back, and so he's way ahead of schedule. So he'll kind of be touch and go for the start of the season, but he'll be back a lot sooner than we maybe had originally anticipated. Outside of that, we're a healthy group and excited to get going this fall. And so from there, I'll kind of open it up to questions.
Down front, David, and then Olin.
Mike, do you have a formula or how early you like to figure out who your starters are going to be, or do you like to let that play out, or do you like to have it early in camp?
Yeah, so I think we go into fall camp with, a much bigger body of work than you go into spring ball with. And so I think there's some positions where you say, okay, we kind of feel like this guy's going to be a starter, or this guy has earned the right to be a starter, Torian York, for example. And whereas in the spring, we maybe would rotate through a bunch of guys into that position. There's certain guys that right now have entrenched themselves through work with our program that they'll kind of be with the ones. But then you also have a lot of open positions, right? The third, fourth, fifth offensive linemen, where we're going in the secondary with every single one of those spots. And I think those things will probably play out through pretty much all of fall camp, which to us ends with the second scrimmage. Fall camp to us is whatever that is, somewhere around practice 16, 17, the second scrimmage, and then you kind of transition into Notre Dame prep, and at that point, you'd like to establish your depth chart. So it's probably a little bit more than the spring, but still quite a few what I would call wide open position battles going in.
Olin?
Mike, if I can ask you a couple things. First of all, a quick question. Chase Basantes, have y'all set a plan which you want to work him at guard, tackle, both? I was just wondering what's the thought on coming into August camp for Chase?
Yes, Chase has been guard all the way, so he's never left guard. We feel really good about where he's at. We think that's the right spot for him. Obviously, it was well seen on social media how strong he's gotten. And so, he's been a guard for day one from us. He's never really moved from there.
And then, forgive me for asking such a convoluted question here, but I know you have a son that plays baseball. So there's this thought in baseball that to be strong defensively, start being strong in the middle. And I wonder, does that translate to football? Is it the same kind of philosophy? Is it different? Or and when you're putting together a defense, do you have a starting point that you like to start off to make sure you got to put together a good defense?
Yeah, probably not a correlation there because it's not like you have the ability to move people into the middle. I think when you think about football, we can't have a really good outside linebacker and play him in the middle. We can't have a really good defensive end and play him at nose guard. So I don't know that it translates the way you're asking. And I don't know that in this day and age you really go into it saying, okay, we have to be strong here or we have no chance, because you have to win every year. And so every year you better come up with a plan that's going to give you a chance. And so I think you evaluate where the strength of your unit is, where the deficiencies are, and I think you try to build your structure and scheme around that. So, we're very strong on the defensive line. I think that's well documented. And so similar to when I was here last time, you kind of rely on them to carry the burden. Maybe you play some more short boxes so you can put more people into coverage. Maybe you ask them to stop the run without having to always overload it with numbers, right? There's certain things that you can do that would rely on a strong defensive line that you maybe wouldn't do if you were weaker on the D line and stronger in the secondary. And so I don't know that you say, this is what we have to do to have success. I think you look at who you are and you say, okay, this is how we've got to build this unit, and even to some degree this week, right? Because injuries play a role and all that stuff. It's just what is the right balance for this unit this week to stop the team that we're trying to stop.
Front left, Mark, then to the right, Carter.
Mike, you're talking about depth on the defensive line, but with Chabre out, maybe wide receiver isn't as deep. How do you feel about the veterans that you have there, and have any of the new guys kind of flashed a little bit in the offseason?
Yeah, probably honestly feel better standing here at the podium today than I did going into the summer. I think each of those kids has taken a step. Now, again, we'll see what that looks like. There's no coach that says, we spent the last 3 months and no one got better. But, I think each of those kids has bought into what we're trying to do with a consistency standpoint and getting their level. And, so I think Noah's had a really good summer. I think Moose has had a good summer. Jabri and Cyrus have had really good summers. But then I think some of the new guys that joined us, Bostic, Ashton Bethel Roman, I think those two kids have jumped out from an athleticism standpoint to say, oh, okay, here's a couple other guys that have flashed and can give us something. And then getting Isaiah Williams out of being a true freshman. He was a high school kid in the spring, and now he's another year, another semester further along. I think he's a kid that we think has flashed and has some potential that I think the things that needed to happen without us adding players, the things that needed to happen from the end of spring ball have happened. And so, I'm happy to see where that group goes this fall camp.
Front right, Carter, then we'll go to the back.
Hey, Mike, I wanted to ask you about the offensive line and just where you feel like the competition is right now with right tackle and center in particular.
Yeah, wide open. I think there's a couple guys that you would think are penciled in, but then I think you've got competition kind of all over the place. I think you've got a battle at center between probably three guys. Each of anyone who loses that battle can potentially flip out to guard, can potentially flip out to right tackle. I think you've got Armaje Reed-Adams, who has flexibility between guard and tackle. I think you have Ernest Crownover and Deuce Fothery, who are competing to be in the starting group. And so I think you have a lot. We just talked about this morning again. There's a lot of ways we have to look at this to make sure when it's all said and done and we go out against Notre Dame, not only do we have the best five on the field, but we have flexibility that we're not locked into only playing five. I think that's the other thing that can give us an advantage is, being able to play 7, 8 guys at times. There's a huge benefit in that as well. And so I think a large part of that will continue to rotate throughout fall camp until some of those solutions, become a little bit clearer.
Coach, back behind the lights in the middle, Tyler.
Yep. Mike, kind of going off the offensive line, when you were here, the 2020 season, that unit was a strength of the team, and you talked about the defensive line being a strength of this team. Do you feel like the offensive line, from what you guys are building, have seen, has the potential to kind of fit in that category of being a strength of the offense?
I think we'd like them to be. I think from where we were to where we are, it would be hard to stand here in front of you today and say it's a strength. But I think we've made a lot of strides. I think we've improved. It'll be interesting to see that group. It's going to be real interesting to see the offense go out this fall camp. I think it will be significantly better than it was in the spring because defensively there was a little bit of carryover. Like the system wasn't completely gone. And so there was a little bit of carryover for the defensive kids. I think it came a little bit easier to them. I think offensively it completely shifted gears 180 degrees. And so I think there was such a steep learning curve for all those kids on offense in the spring that I don't know that they ever truly got under themselves and were playing as well as they could. I think now we're able to double back, go through it all again in the summer, go out there, get a lot of really quality work in the summer. And I think on the back half of the summer, you saw some noticeable comfort increases in the offense, right? And their ability to execute or do the things we are asking them to do seem to come a lot more natural in our work this summer. And so that excites you going into fall camp to see what it really looks like.
Front left, Cease, and then Alex.
So with that in mind, what kind of summer has Wegman had, Mike?
A really good one. I think that's probably the one position of them all, right? Because, when you talk about where he was in the spring, learning a brand new system, coming back from injury, not anywhere near 100%. And then, I keep telling, we talk about this internally a lot. Imagine being a thrower but not being able to put a ton of pressure on your plant leg. So it was, as he's throwing a football, he can't put pressure on his left foot to the way he wants to. And so how you compensate for that, or, it was challenging. It was really challenging for him. And so then to be able to come out of that, now be healthy, be able to play and function the way you want to, be a lot more comfortable in the system, which allows you to kind of be able to play the game the way you want. It's been a cool summer for him to just watch it come together, see the confidence, see the excitement, see the energy. And so, again, none of that is in pads. And so we've got to go out in pads in fall camp and continue to go in that direction. But I think he's a lot more comfortable today than he was at the spring game for sure.
Second row left, Alex.
With Donovan Green coming back full health, what do you like about where he's at and just the tight end room in particular overall?
Yeah, I think Donovan, it's going to take time for him. I think when you talk about coming back from an ACL, that's not easy. And so it's not it's not one of those injuries where, it was a sprained ankle and it's healed and so you're fine. He's still working his way back to being able to plant, cut, move the way he wants to. So that'll kind of be an ongoing process through fall camp. Him and I have talked about that a little bit. The challenge you have coming back from an injury like that is first you got to get through the rehab to get where you're cleared. And then once you clear, now you're going to have to go through the mental challenges that come of you're not going to play. The first time you go out to practice, it's not going to be what you hope it is. You're going to struggle more than you want to. And now keeping pushing through that so that when we get to Notre Dame, he's ready to go. But I know he will be. I have a lot of confidence in him. Trey Watson is back and healthy, so we're excited about where he is and what he's going to be capable of doing. And so we're glad for that one. Theo has had a really good summer, so we're excited to see him get out there. Jaden Platt has continued to improve. And then we added Shane Calhoun, and I think that one's going to give some value as well. And so I think we got a lot of bodies in that tight end room to work with.
Fourth row on the left, Rob.
Howdy, Coach.
Howdy.
So it's been a while since A&M's have a defensive-minded head coach. And when you were here before, the offense would take a long time in between plays. Tell me kind of what your philosophy is as far as in the perfect scenario, what kind of speed do you like to have on offense so that your defensive guys still get some rest?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is dictated on game. I don't know that that's a standard answer. There were games at times at Duke where we felt like we had to play up tempo to get the defense on their heels to create a rhythm, and maybe defensively we felt like we'd be able to hold up to that. There were other games where depth or injuries or whatever where we didn't feel like our best chance to win was to play fast on offense, and we played really slow. I think a lot of that is game to game. I think when you look at what we're doing right now, we want to have the ability to go at a lot of different tempos so that the flexibility and the option to do that is there. And so, we can go in a huddle. We can go up tempo, fast pace off of one word, and then anywhere in between. And I think that's what we're trying to build is a bank to play at whatever speed we want to. And then I think you let the game situation or even the matchup kind of dictate what you think is the right way to play a certain game.
Back behind the lights to the right, Ben.
Hey, Coach, I wanted to ask you about the news that came out with the roster limits expanding next year, at least scholarship-wise. I guess the roster limits constricting, but scholarships going up. Just your thoughts on that, how you navigate that, and as it relates to walk-ons, how you kind of keep that culture intact as best you can.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's still so much uncertainty on that. Even to the 105 number is not exactly finalized yet. We anticipate it will be, but it's not finalized. And so it's hard to kind of come up with a plan or a thought on what it will look like until we get all of the parameters around what the rules are actually going to be. And so, I wish it didn't drop. It's going to. If it adds opportunities for kids via scholarship, that's good. But until we get a little bit more clarity, it's hard to comment on it.
Back behind the lights to the left, Donna.
Back here. Coach, in general, for this first week, do you have any set expectations or things that you want to accomplish just overall with the first week of camp?
No, I don't know about the first week. I think what we're trying to do in camp is establish what we believe winning football looks like. We talk a lot about playing consistent winning football, and that to me is not focused on the result. It's not focused on, because in camp sometimes you can get jaded, right? You can get a sack because the offense misses an assignment, right, which isn't really winning football. You can throw a pass complete, make an explosive play because the defense busts a coverage, which isn't exactly winning football. And so we have these internal formulas for what winning football looks like in practice, and I think we're trying to hit those marks day in, day out consistently. And I think that's what you're trying to build. And I don't know that you say, hey, in the first week we've got to get here, in the second week we've got to get here. It's we want to go out with the amount of time we have with these guys in the summer now. Like, we expect tomorrow night when we go out for practice one that we are operating at full speed, ready to roll. There's no buildup, and that we're going to go out tomorrow and focus on a part of our plan on both sides of the ball, and we want to execute that at a really high level, play winning football consistently tomorrow night, then go out the next night and kind of get another part of the plan involved. And so I think that's kind of how we look at it.
Second row right, Carter.
Mike, with Noah Thomas, I know injuries have been a thing for him in the past. Just what do you think he's capable of if he can stay healthy? Has there been any adjustment made this offseason to kind of be able to prevent some certain injuries?
Yeah, don't really know much about his past. I know he was dealing with some things, and he was dealing with some things with the sports hernia when we got here. But I think from a big picture standpoint, I just think he committed to the weight room from January until today. And I think that commitment ultimately helps when it comes to staying injury prevention and those types of things. We talk a lot in the building about being a pro and taking care of your body, not like a college kid, but like a professional athlete whose body is everything. And I think that doing that more often will help. Again, you can't eliminate everything. Things will happen over the course of a season, but you hope that those two things go. And then in terms of his ceiling, like, he's a 6'4" kid who catches the ball with a huge catch radius, who's athletic, can get separation, and can make big plays. And so I think what he needed to do was get a little bit stronger so he had stronger play strength so that he could play through press, play through the catch point, play physical down the field. And I think he's done all of that. And so I think there's a huge upside for him this year, and hopefully it comes to fruition.
Front left, Mark, and then Olin.
Mike, earlier in the spring and even at media days, you mentioned that you really liked what you were seeing out of the secondary. Now that we're here in camp, can you talk a little bit about that back end of the group?
Yeah, I think we have more versatility and pieces in the secondary room than we had at any point in the last 6 years. And so when you have that, you feel like you have enough to put it together in a way that can be effective. Coming from where we were last year, I don't know that we have 5 first-round draft picks that we're going to lay out in the secondary, but I don't know that that was a reality from where we, you know what I mean? And so the thing that excites me is just we have a lot of options, we have a lot of depth, we have a lot of competition, and we have a lot of guys that are going to be forced to play at their best level in order to get on the field. And so I think when you put all of that together, you have some confidence that there's enough pieces to put together a secondary that can go out there and be effective and efficient in the game. And so I think that's probably what I'm most excited about.
Down front right, Olin, and then we'll go to the back.
Yeah, Mike, you talked about how strong Chase is. You just talked about Noah and the gains he's made. Do you have a sense that you are a significantly physically stronger team than the one you took over?
Yeah, I do. You want more than that?
Well,
no.
What would you
I think it's been well documented that Coach Moffitt has done a change in that room. I think from a cultural standpoint, the way we look at strength and conditioning is different. We wanted to put on strength. We wanted to put on mass. We wanted to go in there and make that room very challenging and very difficult to create toughness, grit, to create an area where kids could really improve, and we've embraced it. I don't think we had a single kid miss a lift this summer. That's good, right? And so if they're in there and you have a very competent strength and conditioning coach, and they're in there consistently working really hard, you would anticipate seeing some strong gains, and we have. And I think when you go out and see these guys in fall camp, I think a lot of their bodies they look a little bit different. They look like they've handled the last 8 months the way you would expect them to, and so I think that ultimately helps.
Yeah, then just for my own clarification, for my own ignorance, you mentioned the 3 guys competing at center. Obviously, Martin Naboo and I guess Coley, and the third one
Cam
would be
Dewberry.
Dewberry.
Yeah,
Okay.
Coley, Mark Naboo, and Cam Dewberry. Sorry, I should have told you that.
Coach, go back behind the lights to the middle, Tyler, and then Ben.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask about Colin Klein, kind of what he's brought to the offense, kind of your relationship with him, and then also about the running back room, just kind of what that looks like right now. Or I know it's early, but do you anticipate kind of a running back by committee type approach to start, or how's the running back room?
I think in an ideal world, you almost always want a running back by committee, so to speak, if that's how you want to call it. I think keeping running backs fresh, keeping them in position where they can last the full season, it's a tough position in this conference and at this day and age to ask a kid to go out there and carry the ball 30 times a game. And so I think we've got a lot of depth in that room. Obviously, Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss have had great summers. I think they're in a good place going into fall camp. Amari Daniels' body looks a lot different than it has since I got here, and so I think he's primed. E.J. Smith is now back and healthy, and so we're excited to see him in fall camp and what he can add and what he can bring to the room. And so you've got a lot of pieces back there that I think could be very successful. And then, we've talked a lot about Colin. There's not a whole lot more to say, but I think he's gonna bring that excitement to our offense that a lot of Aggie fans have been looking for.
Ben, right side, you'll wrap us up.
Oh, good. I'll wrap us up with a fun one. I know there's been a lot of excitement with the players being in the new video game. Wondering if it's maybe a little different from a coaching perspective, if you're having unsolicited advice and people telling you how easy your job is, to win a national championship in year 1, all this stuff, and all the success they're able to have in your role on the game.
I don't know how much of that came from the video game. I've been getting unsolicited advice on how to coach football at an elite levels for about 9 years. So, it's an interesting profession that we've chosen because our daily happiness revolves around 18 to 21-year-olds' decision-making abilities, and we chose a profession that every single person on the planet Earth is an expert in. And so when you put all that together, it's a unique path. So I don't know that necessarily changed much because of college football, but I'm sure everybody has been able to get into dynasty mode and win a championship with their favorite team. And so maybe that just increases expectations from everyone's fan base going into this fall. So appreciate you guys. Good seeing you guys, and excited for fall camp for sure.
Thanks, Coach.